Okay then. Okay, so I'm joined today by Lee Hyde, who is Director of Retail Operations at Ipswich Town. Lee, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Aaron. Thanks. Good.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. It's been a pretty strange time the last few months. How have you adapted to that? How have you coped in yourself and for the club?
Um, yeah, it's been an interesting one to say the least. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times, really. I don't think anybody in football or in other industries will have ever had to deal with anything similar to this that just decimates everything in terms of what we know as normal. Hate the term new normal, but I think everybody's got used to saying it now. For myself, it's been a busy time. I've been fortunate enough to remain working throughout, really, from mid-March right through to kind of getting the teams back in and things more recently. So it has been a challenge, obviously, in terms of the business. I run both the retail and the ticketing side, so I've seen some varying contrasts between the two. Retail, we switched the entire business online, which obviously a lot of retailers did, and to be fair, it held up pretty well. The first few weeks, when everybody was a bit cautious and tightening their belts, obviously we saw a drop off from last year, but we've been fortunate enough that we've kind of gone through kit launches and we've gone through some of our busier periods, which has meant that the online trade has kept strong, really. So we were pleased with the performance, and things are getting back to normal now that we've got the store open, and we're kind of getting back to a more routine operation, albeit without match days, obviously. And then from the ticketing side, obviously, it all ground to a halt. Obviously, we didn't restart as part of Project Restart. Been in League One. We were one of the clubs that did vote to restart. We wanted to play our games. We wanted to play football. But yeah, obviously, we'd gone out with our season tickets just before. So we have had a renewal process, which we've had to kind of freeze and obviously work with what we've got on board. And obviously match tickets and match days just ground to a halt. So there was very little to do there. And then we've gone through the process of refunds and options for our fans, as many clubs have done. I think it's been imperative that clubs are fair and balanced with their supporters, and they give that option to supporters to obviously have their money back if they're genuinely in that position and they do need it and they want that. We have offered that, but we've also offered opportunities for supporters to pledge that money, whether it be to our academy or to the club for its own use. And we're really thankful that a large proportion of our fans have done that. And so we've worked through that process, and now, as you know, over the last couple of weeks, we're starting to focus on the new season and how we can work alongside government guidance and the SGSA and our safety advisory group to actually start getting some fans back into the stadium, which is obviously a monumental task in itself.
And how is that process coming along? The process of reintroducing fans. What have you been doing to get ready for that?
So aside from obviously the challenges with COVID, we actually changed our ticketing provider this summer as well. So we were already gearing up for a whole new education and training rollout in terms of moving to SeatGeek. So we were well on with the build and the development of that platform when lockdown hit. So our training's been massively impacted. So tip my hat to my training, to my ticketing team. They've been phenomenal during lockdown in terms of remote training, group sessions via Zoom. As you know, everybody's getting used to the old Zoom calls, and not only have they had to kind of deal with the whole fallout from lockdown and obviously the more recent stuff, they're learning a new ticketing system as they go as well. So it's just, you know, if we didn't have enough challenges already, we've thrown in a new ticketing system as well. So on the one hand, it's daunting because we have no previous experience of that system. We obviously understand ticketing systems and how they work, but it's, you know, it's like polar opposites from our previous system. But at the same time, it's like looking at it from a strategic point of view and a kind of high level. It's just a massive relief that we've switched. The technology and the kind of intelligence within the SeatGeek system that we've switched to is going to just, you know, the value of that moving into what we need to do now is just, you know, we can't put a value on that. What we're going to be able to do, and the rules engine that their system works off is going to allow us to, you know, tick every box as we come to it in terms of all the new protocol that we've got to go through. So we can run ballots, which we'll have never have had to done before. So just for a bit of context on that, we've got 9,000 season ticket holders, and we're not going to be able to fit all them in from day one. So we're going to have to move to, you know, fair ballots amongst our supporters, and rules where we can almost make it a fair process for our fans. So if they don't see game one, they'll see game two, and hopefully we can ensure an even split of games for our season ticket holders, because obviously the only other option at the minute is the iFollow route and streaming games, which some people have turned around to us and said, actually, I prefer to do that. I don't really want to be in a stadium environment whilst COVID is what it is, and the figures are rising again now, and you know, they'd rather wait for a vaccine or for things to really die down a bit, you know, maybe write this season off and stream it and then come back next season, which we'll look at keeping them seats from 1920 reserved for 21-22, so that if we can get back to normality, it's, you know, everybody is not inconvenienced and they still have their seats. But it's just all of that functionality really that SeatGeek brings that's going to be invaluable. You know, we're having to make sure that there's rules in place where groups buying their tickets together can have to, you know, put an identity against each ticket, so that if it comes down to track and trace, we can obviously supply all of that information for the relevant bodies. We can make sure that people buying their tickets can only see groups of tickets for that specific size group that they've asked for. So you're not going to get people taking a group of 5 tickets for 3 people. You know, it's really going to help us maximize the amount of people we can get in our stadium, but in the most user-friendly way. So we're taking out a lot of the steps that would cause an email or a phone call to our ticket office and additional work. It's such an intuitive system that I think, you know, without having subconsciously made that decision to switch to SeatGeek, I think we'd be in a lot more challenging space. And then alongside that, we've taken on the services of a company based in Barcelona. So they're a company called MMC, and they also use the identity of 3D digital venue. So essentially what that does is it maps out your stadium seat by seat. So you see a seating plan the same as you do in your ticketing system. And it then works off a load of sliding scale parameters. So you can, because they work with clubs globally, obviously everybody's social distancing aspect is different in different regions. So you can use a sliding scale in either meters or feet from, you know, 2.5 meters right down to 0.1 meters. You can plug in how many seats that you want it to kill automatically on the aisles. If your aisles aren't 1.5 meters or 2 meters wide enough, you obviously have to start killing the seats either side so that distancing is maintained. And then you can tell it what breakdown you want in terms of the group sizes of tickets. So we're able to plug in data that we've taken from our season ticket holders. So we've surveyed our season ticket holders and actually asked them what size group they're going to attend in. And then we can take that data and plug it into this social distancing manager. And then what that does, once you've got all your parameters plugged in, literally at the touch of a button, it'll then lay out your seating plan, your optimal seating plan within your stadium. We can then export that and import it into SeatGeek. And obviously it locks off all the seats that we don't need to use, and obviously makes available for allocation or for purchase the seats that are left remaining, which ensures that everybody is social distanced. One of the fun jobs that I've had to do over the last week or so is do the whole stadium audit. So basically get out into the stadium with the laptop, make sure that the systems are all accurate, make sure there's no seats missing, make sure there's obviously no alignment issues, because you trust in this system with a 99% accuracy to distance people. You know, it's no good the alignment being wrong and then somebody finding out on a match day that somebody sat directly in front of them. So yeah, this last week I've been out in the stadium. Fortunately, the weather's been quite nice. Checking every seat in the stadium, which I know a lot of people will be nodding along thinking, I've done that job in my stadium. And it's a good practice to go through. Obviously, we've done it quite recently anyway because of the move to SeatGeek and making sure that seating plan was built accurately. But it's always a good exercise to go and do that in your stadium. People that work in stadiums will know that seats get added and taken, and you know there's all manner of things that happen inside a stadium bowl that don't necessarily get updated on systems. So yeah, it's been an interesting learning curve, but we're definitely getting there now.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and that use of technology is that going to be vital going forward in terms of bringing fans back safely, and you being able to show some trust, show fans there's a lot of trust and there's a lot of work gone into their safety once they're in the stadium? Yeah,
definitely. I think, you know, we're trying to be as transparent with our fans as possible because they've got big decisions to make at the end of the day. You know, do they want to come and watch games in an environment with thousands of other people? You know, if I didn't work in the sport, I'd certainly watch the sport, and that'd be one of the big considerations that I was making. You know, I've got a young family at home, and do I want to take that risk? What information do I know about that venue that they're trying to keep me safe? So yeah, we need to be able to go out with that information, and we are doing. So it is massively important for us. The use of technology, I mean, for instance, over the last couple of weeks, the guidance has changed twice in the last couple of weeks for us in sport. And one was obviously the rule of 6 that the government have come out with, and obviously taken it was 6 people from up to 2 households in England, and now it's the household has kind of been abolished, but then people within the 6 need to social distance. So the stuff it's changing almost on a daily or weekly basis, Aaron, and it's having that technology in place means that we can just go back to it and plug some new parameters in, and at the push of a button we've got another new seating plan. Other than that, it'd be myself and stadium managers and safety officers in the stadium with a tape measure. And I know some clubs have gone through that process, but we did the whole process, and then a couple of days ago we found out from the SGSA that actually they're going to push for the 1.5 metre guidance. We were working towards the 1 metre with the mitigation, and the SGSA are almost saying, we really need you to start at 1.5 and prove that works. And and I think the fans will be looking for that that kind of safety as well. And if we can prove that we're actually going above and beyond before we then step it up and try and get more people back into the venue, then we've done our job, we've proved a concept. But again, it's the technology that's driving that. We wouldn't, receiving that SGSA information a few days ago would have meant another 2-3 days in the stadium laying out a new seating plan in our heads, and then a day putting it onto a system. So yeah, it's been, as I say, it's been invaluable, really.
Yeah, and that's vital for a club of your size, especially in League One, where you haven't got the resources of say, a big championship club or a Premier League club. And also the fact that you've had to go so long without any fans coming into the stadium, that revenue's not there. It's vital that you maximise as much of the revenue generating systems that you've got. I mean, I want to go back to the retail side as well. Kind of, what's the investment been like in online retail? Because obviously there are no other sources of income for you at the moment other than your retail from the fans.
Yeah, it's a conversation I was having with the owner a couple of weeks ago, that whilst our online platform has held up and has been very strong throughout lockdown. I mean, our kit launch was, we were a bit nervous because we were kit launching online for the first time, solely online without the store trade. But in the first couple of weeks, we were 400% up, which, yes, is down to the fact of, the kit is an anniversary kit, and it's, it's been really well received by the fans, which is fantastic. But should anything happen to that online platform, overnight you can be without a sales mechanism. So one of the conversations that I was having with the owner was, we really need to invest whilst it's going strong, we need to continue to invest in that online platform and make sure that it's as robust as possible, it's secure as possible. It is, but we can take further steps and just kind of future-proof it and make sure that we're not running into issues with traffic and volume and latency on the site and things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting one, because at the moment, obviously, clubs are trying to cut their costs and manage appropriately compared to the revenues that are coming in. But where that's driving such a strong revenue, it's almost imperative that we continue to make that investment to make sure that basically the rug doesn't get pulled from under our feet overnight. Because if we run into any problems, or it's not performing, or it can't hold up to the amount of traffic, then it's just like closing your shop. So yeah, it is important that continued investment. But I know it's a difficult time for clubs as well. So I think where we probably benefit with our owner is he sees that it is driving those decent revenues as isolating it from the rest of the business. That is a revenue driver, and it's holding up well. So we need to protect that revenue stream. Whereas I know other areas of the business that would love to invest in, decoration of lounges or suites or bars, and there's just no revenue there. So, projects had to be put on a back burner. And the projects that are kind of driving the revenues that we've got going at the minute have been brought forward. So yeah, it's been an interesting balancing act as a club overall, and a management team. I think there's a few discerning looks from other members of the management team when you can get some money spent, but it's obviously for the right reasons. So.
And do you think that's a difficult conversation for other people at other clubs? Do you think how difficult is that a conversation for someone in your position at another club in League One, League Two, to try and convince their board to invest in the bits and pieces that they feel will bring a benefit? And what do you say to those people? What would your advice be to them to try and convince their board?
Yeah, it's, it'll almost be on a club by club basis, I guess, in terms of, what extra do they use their stadium for? Is there any revenue being generated at the minute? How is their department performing? We're performing well, which is, music to our owners' ears, but that is largely down to been an anniversary season for us, and obviously doing quite well off the back of that with the kits. But yeah, it's the only advice that I can really give anybody else that's potentially wanting that kind of security of some investment is really to highlight, take 5 minutes to kind of blow your own trumpet a little bit. If your department is the only department that's driving the revenue for the club, then you need to be highlighting that. I'm sure you are already, but are you driving the revenue at your normal level, or are you driving is revenue actually increasing? We thought that there was an increase because people were just so starved of football. So when we did launch a kit, it was like, that's all they've had to get excited about for 6 months, especially at League One and below, where there's been no Project Restart. I know the guys at Championship level and Premier League level have obviously had continued football through, and for our guys, there's just been nothing. They're watching these other clubs play football and just thinking, almost, we were kicking ourselves that we'd been relegated the season before. Otherwise, we would have been in the Championship Project Restart. But yeah, there was one school of thought that maybe that was driving some additional revenues because people were wanting to support the club. They knew all clubs are going through a difficult time. So, they'd maybe saved money on not buying match tickets if they were a match ticket purchaser. So they were almost putting their money back into the club through those channels, and again driving the revenues for retail. Which, as I say, let's not hide behind the fact we weren't trading up month on month. Some months it was tight, especially at the start. But kind of June, July, August have been really good. I guess people just need to approach it with that mentality, really, and think about if that online revenue were to be compromised in some way. What does that then mean for the club? Is that jobs lost? Is it redundancies taking place? Is it even worse? I mean, look at the tragic of Macclesfield in the last couple of days. Is it that a HMRC bill isn't getting paid because the revenue isn't coming through and bits? And these are going to be different conversations at different clubs depending on their circumstances. We're fortunate that we have an owner that does subsidise the club and does lose money every year, but to a level that he's comfortable investing. And we don't have we don't have huge mortgages and huge loans propping up the club. It's all his own debt. So I can only speak on behalf of us, and I know a lot of other clubs are in different circumstances. But yeah, just keep plodding away really with your board and your owner in terms of technology and investment in your own revenue channels, whilst still obviously trying to work as a management team for the wider good of the club as well. You'll get there, hopefully. Hopefully there's some understanding boards and understanding owners. But yeah, I do appreciate we're probably in a position where we can plead for that, whereas there'll be clubs that can't, obviously.
Okay. And what I kind of want to finish on the last question of what have you and what has the club learned during this whole period that you can take forward and hopefully come back stronger?
What a question that is. I mean, we've had to do a lot of firefighting as we've gone. You're literally dealing with things that are landing in your lap at that moment in time and needing some quick decisions. I think what we've been really good at as a club is certainly since there's been a few more of us back in the building has been the regular meetings and the regular communications that we're having as a management team. And I know clubs that aren't back in their buildings are doing the same via video calls, and just keeping that conversation going, because whilst there might only be certain departments that are operating at 100%, the experience of your peers and your colleagues is vital, and they might just, you might be in a meeting where they're just throwing something in and you just think, why did I not think of that? Because you're so caught up in your own planning, really, and your own forecasting. What we did notice during the months where there was nobody here, everybody was kind of doing their own thing, which was fine because you're looking after your own, but it was evident that there were a lot of things starting to fall between the cracks, and that the communication probably wasn't there as much as it needed to be. So I think that's been a real focus since we've been back in the building, and we are, the COVID approach to ticketing and trying to get fans back in the stadium. We're having at least weekly meetings, 2 meetings some weeks, because everything's moving so quickly. I think it's bringing us closer as a group of department heads to really steer the business, because we're steering through stuff that we've never had to steer through before. So I think everybody's had a little bit of a reality check in terms of cash flow and P&Ls. Obviously, they've been ripped up and started again. In terms of forecasting, it's pretty much, how do you forecast when you're going to have any match day revenues back? It's nigh on impossible, but you've just got to plan for every circumstance, really. There's sets and sets of forecasts been done here for every circumstance, and then obviously as time moves on and things change and things become a little bit clearer, certain forecasts are thrown in the bin, and others are expanded and worked on a little bit more. So yeah, it's a tough question to answer. What have we learned? Probably just how to deal with it with a pandemic. Hopefully we don't have too many more to deal with, and hopefully this one's over pretty soon. But yeah, it's again just the industry as well. The industry's there for you. So I know I've spoken to a huge amount of colleagues from other clubs. We didn't have anything in retail. I know the ticketing side was a bit more developed with their WhatsApp groups, and the ticketing providers have been having regular Zoom calls, which has been great because you get to find out, those that have had test events, how it went and what they did and how they got ready for it. Those that were in the stages of planning, what are they thinking about? What are they actually planning for at the moment? And that best practice is, again, I use the word invaluable, but that really is invaluable, just to get 8 or 9 if you want to call from all different clubs, all different sizes, different sports. We had some rugby guys on the ticketing calls, and just really just sit in a room and hear what they're planning and what their club are doing and bits. So from a retail perspective, I set up a call with a number of heads of retail. So we were having kind of 2 or 3 weekly calls. Sorry, 2 weekly calls, not 2 every week. And that's been quite useful. We've had clubs right down the pyramid into non-league that have been on the calls that have kind of been, telling us, they are pretty much shut down. And even when they can only open their shop, there'll only be 1 person in it because, of the size of the store. And then we've had guys, we've had Premier League guys on those calls. So it's really good to have the Premier League guys and non-league guys and everybody in between talking to each other, just to really share their experience. You've got people that are new to the industry that maybe only been in it a year or 2. And then, people who've got a lot more experience than myself on the same calls. We set up a retail WhatsApp group. So, there's a lot. I think communication is probably one of the biggest things. And as an industry, we're getting through it together, not just club by club, but, we're all talking to each other and helping each other out. So, yeah, it's been good for that in a way. You don't want to say that something good's come out of something so terrible, but, it has pushed clubs and the industry closer together, I think. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've learned from my discussions with other people in football clubs is that the pandemic has allowed them to take a step back and reassess what they've been doing and maybe look at things a bit differently and work out how they go forward from that. So I'm going to end it there. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic, brilliant interview, really good insight into what you've been doing, and I really wish you well going forward and hope you can get your fans back into Portman Road and
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the work that you've done in the stadium audit and the investment in technology will really help you to do that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate talking to you as well. It's always good.
Not a problem. All right, thank you and goodbye.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.